Welcome back, everyone. We're at another episode, and today we're going to be looking at South Africa. Today, we're actually going to be looking into a more probably statistical and data-driven analysis and how the coronavirus has maybe impacted the economical side. I think before we've kind of looked at a more personal, more anecdotal perspective, and I think this would be really interesting to a lot of you, just as an example to maybe see with more solid evidence and maybe more visual representations of just how impactful this disease has been. So here we have our guest. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks for the intro, Eric. My name's Nathan Smith. I'm a South African, born and bred in Johannesburg, and currently married to a beautiful Singaporean, and we have a little baby girl that is 3 months old, and she was born during COVID.
Oh, wow.
So there we go.
Yeah. All right. So just to start us off, I'll just probably ask you what do you think? What have you seen in the past few months? Because like you said, your baby was just born in these times. So how would you say it's personally impacted you in the past few months?
Right. So we actually are based in Singapore, and we came to South Africa for a holiday, and we got locked in with the nationwide lockdown that took place. And yeah, my wife was advanced in her pregnancy at that stage, so we actually ended up giving birth here. And then in turn, we decided for me to move back to South Africa, and we actually are relocating here now. So my daughter would have been Singaporean by birth, and she's now South African. um, Unfortunately, my wife's business didn't survive the wave of COVID in Singapore, so unfortunately closed down. And so did the practice that I was running as well. So we both found ourselves looking for new employment when we were in South Africa, which actually led me to starting my own business here again. And just taking it as it comes and making the best of what we have.
Yeah, incredible. So for you, do you have a positive outlook on the potential future of how it is in your country, or what are you expecting?
I I am an optimist and always an idealist. So yes, I do see the positive, and I do believe that South Africa will not only recover, but I hope that this is an opportunity for us to fix what was wrong with the economy before COVID came. And I think that there has been a lot of positives that have came out, and I say that very humbly because there's been a lot of lives lost to COVID. And I'm very sensitive to that fact, and many people have lost loved ones because of it. Um, but there has been some things that I've seen in the economy that have gone badly, and then I've seen other things that have actually gone well, and I've seen a lot of change on the positive side, which was very uplifting. But yes, we will recover. Will it be a speedy recovery? I think in certain sectors, yes. In other sectors, no. And I think we are still to see a collapse of many other sectors and industries. But the South African spirit is very strong, and the people are exceptionally resilient and very resourceful and very creative and positive. And I do believe that we will, by hook or by crook, come out and find ways to provide for our families and ourselves.
So I don't know a lot about South Africa, but I do know a few things about the economy. I know that the unemployment, especially with young people, is very high. I'm sure you can provide a lot more info about this and maybe a lot more. So please, if you have anything.
Okay, so I've had the privilege of traveling Southeast Asia, outside of just South Africa itself. I haven't been to many other countries, but Southeast Asia, I've done quite a few trips around it. What I must say, South Africa is one of the very rare economies that is exceptionally well balanced.
Mhm.
This was done by previous administrations that ran the country, and they were very intentional in building a balanced country and economy. And we had that because we had the mining, we had agriculture, we had finance, we had services, we had everything. And they invested a ton in infrastructure. Most of the infrastructure we have today was actually built by previous administrations. We've only seen one or two communication, trains or roadways that have been built. But other than that, everything that we see today was built by previous administrations. So South Africa was very rich in resources, in trading, the amount of harbors we have. We exported so much of our produce to other countries. So South Africa was really a powerhouse, economic powerhouse. And that's what kept us stable, because when one sector goes down, the other one carries us through, and one sector feeds the others. And when you have a thriving business, they, of course, use providers, they use other businesses, and that just feeds the whole economy. So it's very important to be balanced. Certain countries, if you look like Singapore, most of the businesses are state-owned or owned by a parastatal of some sort, or some form of government-owned company, and they also own the competitive company as well. So it's very much monopolized, and traditionally it's a harbor and a banking, a place where people can push their money and it's safe. So Singapore doesn't have all the mines, they don't have all the other sectors, the manufacturing, the engineering, the intricate supply chain systems. They don't have the surface area or the square meterage. So South Africa is actually a beautifully resourced company, and our economy, when it's managed in the right way, thrives. I mean, we did have a bit of impact. Yes, we were downgraded to junk status by Moody's, before COVID. So, we weren't receiving any foreign investment or confidence of foreign investment. Unfortunately, and that was just the worst timing for them to give us that status. But nevertheless, it happened. So yeah, there are some things that we were struggling with. I mean, inflation got a bit bad, and where it hits the pockets of the low income brackets. So, single moms, people that are living in systemic poverty, which is a major plague in this country, is systemic poverty, which leads to crime. And deaths and all the other things that we see. So yes, we had our issues, but COVID did bring some negative things, but there were also some positive things that I've seen as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd say, would you say in the past few months, do you think you guys are recovering? Because I know there's a lot of countries I've been interviewing. Some of them are we're having a second wave. The US never got past the first wave. What about South Africa?
So in terms of the infection rates, look, when it comes to data and statistics, I always approach it with sort of a squinted eye, because I do believe that, when you're taking data for things like COVID tests and you're comparing it to other countries, you need to remember South Africa is very unique. We've seen that the people infected with COVID here have a higher recovery rate. So I don't focus as much on the infection rate as a sort of a dial stick, or I don't look at it as saying, okay, I'm using this to make up my mind. I look at the economy, I look at businesses, and I look at the impact. So just to give you some insight, since March, we've had in average, now remember the population is over 40-60 million, and 1 in 5 people have lost their jobs. I just got data over the weekend from the head of hospitality for HTA that 187 restaurants have closed. 187 restaurants have closed. I don't know if you're aware, but South Africa is one of the few countries that actually banned the sale of alcohol and liquor during lockdown.
All right, interesting. Yeah. Why they do that? Is it to spread?
They did it actually to prevent the transmission. So in the what we call the informal settlements, or the locations, the poverty areas where the masses stay, when one has a cigarette, it's normally shared and passed on. I'll have a few drags and pass on to another person, they have a few drags. And also the communities are incredibly social. So they have what we call shebeens, which is effectively an informal pub. And the culture is to go in there on a Friday night or whenever you get paid and, share a couple of drinks, but it's a very small room and people are really on top of each other. And the African communities, it's a very expressive community. So they speak very loud. So the transmissions are very high, and they also share alcohol. So, and also one of the reasons for the alcohol ban was our casualty wards in the state-owned hospitals were inundated with emergencies because of alcohol related issues, drunk driving, fights, and what have you. So when they cut it, we actually did see a decrease in that happening, and it did free up the emergency wards for COVID treatment. But it did cost just in tax alone. So this comes from our commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, and he gave this data to CNBC Africa. So just on employment taxes alone, the company lost 14.5 billion rand. On corporate taxes alone, corporate income taxes, we lost 16 billion. On just alcohol tax, so this isn't the actual sale of the alcohol itself, 7 billion. Cigarettes, 3 billion. Just value added tax, 14.5 billion. Customs tax, 16.7 billion. Just on export tax alone, 5.7 billion. So, and that's just on the export tax of alcohol. So it's been a very costly exercise for the economy. But the decision was made by our president, Mr. Ramaphosa, and that's to protect the lives of the citizens. And his wife is a medical doctor, so you do understand he would take the approach that would be more medical, people, live driven versus keep the economy open driven. I think Donald Trump was very geared towards keeping the economy going versus saving lives. And I mean, he does, I'm not saying he didn't care for that, because he did, but if you look at the approaches broadly, everything that came out of Donald Trump's mouth was economy driven, and everything that came out of our president's mouth was saving lives. So it did cost the economy, but we can recover.
Mm-hmm. And would you say for your country, like you said, there's a good amount of people who are recovering? Is it because there's a good amount of hospitals? Like, do you think there's enough sufficient space, or not at all?
No. So unfortunately, our infrastructure in South Africa has been very stressed. And when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about, yes, our state-owned hospitals. They weren't coping just under regular circumstances as it is. Our roads, everything. I mean, everything was under stress. So no, it's not because of that. Some people say that it could be that we have a different strand of the virus here in South Africa. Other people say that the South Africans fight it differently. But then, if you look at our HIV infection rates, the scientists predicted in the beginning that because of the infection rates, because of the pre-existing condition of HIV, we were going to have mass deaths, and we actually were preparing for mass funerals, and the army was on standby to dig mass graves, and it was really a scary time. But we didn't see that volume of death affect us, luckily. So we actually don't know exactly what the reason is, but we're having a lower death rate from it, which is good, I guess.
Yeah. And would you say the impact of coronavirus has been a lot heavier on maybe poor communities compared to the wealthier ones? Because I feel like there's a significant gap. Or what do you think about that?
So there's different ways to approach the question. So on the one hand, you can say it has affected the poorer communities, because if you look at the types of jobs that people do in the poor communities, it's normally manual labor. So, low skill manual labor jobs. So you're looking at domestic helpers, you're looking at gardeners, you're looking at mine workers. So when those people can't be employed because their bosses' salaries have been cut or whatever, what do they do to survive? Unfortunately, some of them do have to resort to crime and looting, which happened. We had mass looting, and we had the issues. But it's systemic poverty. What do you expect them to do? Yeah. Yes, I hate crime. I don't want to be robbed. No, I don't want to be robbed. And is it my responsibility to feed them? I don't know. That's a different discussion or debate. But if you need to feed your family, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And we had major fraud take place because the President Cyril Ramaphosa, set up a relief fund, and half of that money was stolen. So we have a corrupt government, unfortunately, and I hate to say it because I respect this government and I respect the president, but it's the fact, it's the truth. The money was stolen. So the money that should have fed the masses went into Porsches and Land Rovers for corrupt politicians and government officials that
Mm,
could sign off their own tenders. So the administration of the funds was unfortunately not governed in the correct way.
yeah. Would you say people are satisfied? Are they happy with how the government has been responding? Because like you mentioned, I feel like they have focused a lot more on saving the people over sacrifice for their economy. So would you say people are happy overall, or do they want more?
No. The people in the poverty-stricken communities are not happy. I don't think they were given enough data and education around the pandemic
Mm,
to understand what was going on. So when I drove into the informal settlements, um, no one was wearing masks. No one was social distancing. No one was sanitizing, nothing. And we actually had grants. The government did allocate grants to provide that PPE to the communities, and it didn't get there. But I don't think the education was sufficient for them to listen and understand.
mm,
So no, and it's quite ironic because most of the lockdown measures were put in place to protect them, and they didn't follow it. It was the people in suburbia that hit the brunt of it as well, and we're the ones that actually help employ these people. But anyway, so no one's actually satisfied. I think the president has done really hard. You need to remember that the way that the South African government is structured, he doesn't. He's not a dictatorship. He can't make a decision on his own. He needs buy-in from everybody in the government, and he hasn't been getting that because he has been cleaning out the closets, so to speak, and he hasn't had a unanimous support, unfortunately. And we love him and we support him and we pray for him and we really respect him, and we really hope that this government turns around. And all we need is for the corruption to end, and then this country will see the best that it's never seen before. It will, and
definitely,
it can.
definitely. I definitely agree. I feel like with what you said, everything that you said, there's really a chance that this country has to be able to turn around. And I really think that if they make the correct decision in the future, if they're not struggling with this corruption, which is a huge issue in many countries, I really hope that this turnout might be able to make something a lot better for a lot of the people. But I think what you said was very insightful, especially about the attitudes between the people and the government.
I would like to end on we spoke a bit about what was going wrong because of COVID, and I just wanted to mention some things that have been going right,
Yeah,
because I
sure,
think
of
it's
course.
important to
Yeah.
acknowledge that and to install hope in those who are potentially in a situation where they're worried
Mm,
or not in the best situation. So where we have seen major increase in South Africa is on the insurance industry. It actually made a 15%.
true.
They hit their targets with 15% this year, so 15% more than they thought they would. Technology, so software and applications, mostly because everyone's going software first
Mhm.
and mobile application first. They're booming, absolutely growing. Banking has been just fine and dandy. Um, E-commerce has seen a boom. We've seen retail struggle in some areas, but in terms of our grocery stores and our food suppliers, they've absolutely, been thriving. E-wallets and payments, people are transferring money more online now to their families in other areas because of the restrictions and distancing and so on. E-logistics, we're seeing, this is what I love. Instead of seeing a big company like DHL, delivering, or courier companies delivering, we're seeing people that have a motorbike, a bicycle, a car, and just access to public transport actually delivering things on their own now. So we're seeing new waves of entrepreneurs coming out as well. Homeschooling. So people are not going to these big schools anymore.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable sending a child to, where there's 5 or 10 kids at home. So yeah, I think there has been a lot of things that we wish we didn't see, and a lot of unfortunate business events, and so many closures of preschools and wineries, and I mean the list goes on. But we have seen the South African spirit rise, and we have seen people stick up their hands and say, "I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to do this on my own." And I'm incredibly motivated and inspired by that, and yeah, I know that we say in our local dialect, power to the people. and I know we will rise. We will rise, and we
Definitely.
will. Yeah, beauty will come out of these ashes. It will happen.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of like growth in technology, a lot of entrepreneurs. That's incredible. That's truly like one of the best ways to really, pave the road to go forward in a bright path. So yeah,
Yeah,
bright hopes for South Africa. I really hope you guys are able to turn around, and I'm rooting for you guys as well. So thank you so much for coming.
it's a massive pleasure. All the best to you there in Dubai, Eric, and yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yep. Thank you so much.